Welcome to another visit into the totally awesome fishing workshop, where I'm going to give you some how-tos again. What's a how-to? It's how to make things, how to save some money and how to catch some more fish. So this one is how to make some of these chaps. Lead weights. Now lead making can be quite satisfying. It's normally done in the off season if you have an off season, but with the cost of buying these from the shops, my goodness me, it's worth getting hold of some scrap lead, melting down your own, getting some moulds, save yourself some money, and boy, is it an enjoyment when you see them come out all gleaming and silverish lovely. Come on, let's get cracking. Right, now you can buy scrap lead from, obviously, scrap dealers. That's probably the cheapest way of getting hold of it, but get in touch with the plumber who does plumbing and you can come up with some lead piping, buy it direct from the plumber, save yourself some money. Go and see an electrician or electrics company. Occasionally they rip places out that are archaic. And lead wire. You've got some lead wire there. That's another one. Or you can get hold of some flat lead. I got this from the church roof the other... No, it's a joke. It's a joke. I didn't get it from the church roof. You can get this flat lead and I'll show you. You can either melt it down or you can hammer it round into a shape. But you can buy this as well from builders merchants. That's a dear way to do it. So you've got electricians to contact, you've got plumbers to contact. What about a roofer? Because he uses stuff for flashing. He's going to sell his old stuff when he replaces it with new to the scrap metal people. Going to earn himself a few bob. Good luck to him. Why don't you get in there first and buy it at cost price, direct from the roofer, the plumber or the electrician. Let's start with the electric wire. Okay, you've got your good old electric wire, lead covered. You cannot melt this down as it is, because inside there is just a fibrous material around the actual core of the wire, the live and the neutral, the red and the black. It stinks to high heaven. It'll probably be toxic. You don't want it, so you want to strip out the inside. So what you do is you get your strip of lead like this, get your coil of wire in, just straighten it a bit and then tap it out. Just tap it flat. I snip the end off, neat, and then I just get a pair of tin snips like this, and he says, not wishing to get his fingers, I just split the end down the middle, just nick it like that, just to part the two cables. You can sometimes cut the cable, but generally, if you do that, you split it apart, and one side or the other, there you go. Oh, it's tough. It's been in there about 50 or 60 years. You've got the wire. Can be tough to pull out, but here's some I prepared earlier. You straighten out all your wire, get yourself a pair of mould grips, and then, just like that, hand on one side, strength on the other, and you just strip out this wire, lock the mould grips nice and tight. And you can see, I'll try it really close for you, it strips and cuts right through the wire, or the lead. The wire's actually cutting through the lead. Right, now once you've done that splitting and you've got one core of the wire out, the other core is going to be in there. So you need to just open it up like this with a screwdriver. Okay. Then carefully do this carefully, because this is the stuff that you don't want to burn. You want it all peeled out so it's nice and clean. And look, that's what you pull out. Now here, just so you know, in case you've got a property that's got this stuff in it, this is what happens to it if you don't have it replaced by an electrician. It just breaks up and crumbles up, the coating around the outside. It can even be rubber backed. It just absolutely breaks away. Look at this, like this. Useless, absolutely useless, could cause a fire. That's why electricians have to strip this stuff out when they see it and put new in. And obviously, from your point of view, that's brilliant. Look at all this lovely lead I'm getting off here. You can do it with gloves if you want. And once you get a good run going, look, you can strip it right out and just blow out the fibres, snip it off with a pair of tin snips. That's ready to go in the pot. Right, I've prepped up all the wire. That's my lead. That's all with the cable stripped out of it. But look, that's all the stuff that comes out of it. So that is wasted. So when you buy it from the electrician, what you do is you phone the scrap guy up first and say how much are you paying for lead wire. He will tell you, And then he'll also probably say, yeah, but that's either cleaned or cheaper because they got manually stripped this all out. So with the electrician, you've got to say to him, come on, guy, give me a deal. You know, there's all this wastage. You don't want to pay for the weight of it, this and that. Anyway, that's ready to go in the pot. Now, we've got some lead piping as well. Now, lead piping, over there. 2 ways of doing lead piping. Hacksaw, vice. It flies through it. Or a bolster and a club hammer. Whichever you want. I'll show you how fast you can saw through this stuff. Right, you've got to get about the same width that you want to put in the width of your pot. You obviously don't want to saw it off a foot wide because you won't get it in your pot. Saw it off, let's say, 4 inches if you're using a small pot. In the vise, you can crush it if you want, you don't need to. Hacksaw, couple of strokes, 5, 4, 3, 4 seconds. That's one way of doing it. So saw it all up like this. Now another tip is, get your hammer and flatten it right down. You're making sure there's nothing in there. You have no moisture in there at all. But if you flatten it down, it lays on the heat of the pan better like that. So I find, otherwise where it's circular like that, like this one, you've got to melt through here first and just round the edges before it actually heats this up. This is crushed flat, it melts faster. Okay, get your piece of pipe, get your bolster. Same sort of distance, you want about, let's say, 4 inches for the pot. Club hammer, what I like to do first, just flatten it with 2 hits. That's gone and it's flown from one end of the workshop to the other. But you can see, straight through. But what you can do as well, I'll show you on this one, just mark it the once. Just like that. And you can just bend it, fatigue it, once or twice. Big thick pieces of pipe like this. There you go. So pretty easy to do. That's your lead piping done. All that's left is the lead sheeting or the flashing from the roofing guy. Just use the throat of the tin snips. Don't use the tip and just work it in little small bites, easing it across and bending it back as you go. See if you can watch it like this, I think. There we go, look, it goes right through. Quite easy. And then what you're doing is you're cutting it like this in about 4-inch widths, which is the same width as I told you, like that, for the pan. Clean any rubbish or residue off it because it's only going to smell the place out when it melts. And you can fold it over in 2, get your club hammer, squash it down flat. Job done, that's ready for the cooking pot. Okay, let's look at some of the moulds you can get. Now, first off, I like these things. These are like sprung grips. I can hardly squeeze them one hand. They're very, very strong and they clamp onto the mould to stop them falling apart, just like this one, as you can see. See, it just holds the mould together. There you go, there's the mould. That's the shape of the lead. If you left them like this normally, you pour the lead in there, the lead would just push them apart, molten, and it would run everywhere. Possibility of getting burned. So, yes, squeeze. I can do it one-handed, and it locks it together. These are boat fishing moulds, very big ones, made by a company called DCA, and that's the general shape of the mould. Keep them nice and clean, give them a wipe out, you don't want any dust in there or anything like that, and they just lock with these pins here, locked into the holes just there. So these things last years. I've had some 30 years and are still making lead, so the initial outlay you do get back. If you want very, very heavy leads, we've got this shape, which looks a bit peculiar, I dare say. It's actually got a hole in the bottom, so you have to ask yourself, does the lead not run out of there? No, that's actually inverted. And you have here the links, the eyelet links that you use, and you drop these through the hole, just like that. Push them down. The weight of the lead is gripped by this bit here, by this fluted vein at the back that holds the lead. And actually the lead fishes like a pyramid upside down. That's the shape of the lead. Then you tap it out and you'll get the lead. Then we've got some surf bomb moulds. These are 4-in-1s. It'd be like 5, 4, 3 and 2 ounces, or 6, 5, 4, 3. There's, you know, you can do 2 leads at one go here. You can clamp them together just like this. There we go. And you've got, actually I've got them upside down. Line the holes. You've got two pour holes here. So you put your eyelets in the top here, the top there, clamp it up front and back, and you've got 2 portholes, and you can do 2 leads at one time. And moving on, I've got some other leads here which I can use grips. They come with grips in the joints for surf casting or uptiding leads. Then you've got the wires that come with them as well. Grippaways, I think they're called, by DCA moulds, and you've got the wires which you can use as well, and different weight leads for surf casting or uptide fishing. Now, other ones I keep, these are, just as a tip, blancmange dishes, but they're stainless, so the lead doesn't stick to them. And then what I've done is I've got to drill a hole through there, as I have done, and I'm going to do 1/2, 1/2. So I do 2 halves of lead, and then when they tap out, I've actually got a ball, a downrigger ball, that weighs, I don't know what it weighs, about 8-9 pounds I think, that I tap them out, and I've got a perfect circle, and I bolt the 2 halves together to make a giant big downrigger ball, generally when I'm going big game fishing or trolling dead bait. So stainless blancmange dishes, the wife doesn't even know I've got them. Then down here, now these are really good moulds, these ones. These are called an adjusty mould, which that piece slots in here. The pouring hole is there, as you can see just there, and that will be the way you pour it there. You clamp it obviously, and you can slide this in and out. And what that does is, the smaller this is, your eyelet goes in here. That's a small weight, but you can go 6 ounces, 7 ounces, 8 ounces, clamp it together, whatever size you want, and obviously you can adjust it. It's got notches here at the back to tell you different size leads. So that is dead handy for general boat fishing. And of course you need these little eyelets that go through the end here, but I'll show you just before I pour the leads that I do actually change the shape of these. I actually change the shape of those and bend them in. They're a peculiar shape like that. This one's a good mould as well, very, very shiny one. That's to be about 8-10 ounce on. That's very, very good. That's one of my more popular ones. They all lock together with these little pins like that. And then this type you can get. These are a bit of a fiddle. They're small leads. They're nice small leads. And you put the little eyelets in the top here, and you can do 2 leads. As you can see, there's 2 lead moulds there. I'll just take them apart so you can see it. There's 2 lead moulds there, but they have one central pour hole, but they kick across here, one into this is the channel, the feeding channel for the lead, one into that one into that one. You have to get these very, very hot, and you have to preheat them, otherwise the lead cools in these narrow neck channels. So if you look at this one, that's got a much bigger hole there, much bigger hole that the lead goes through quickly. You want to pour the lead quickly. Handy lead though, they stand vertically, and then you've got this locking spring which just drops over the top like this, and that holds the lead together. Very similar one is this one, which has very light lead, which I use for pollock fishing. It's got this sliding cutout there, and as you can see, there's the moulds. Nice, but the same problem. Pour holes are very, very narrow, the channel, so you need to get these quite hot. You get quite a big failure rate on these, I find anyway, that one. But it's unfortunately a really handy size. Now you're going to need a pair of leather gloves, because everything with lead melting is going to be hot. Sooner or later you're going to get your fingers burnt. So a pair of gardening gloves, but the leather ones are pretty good. They're a bit cumbersome, but you can set everything else up with, say, thinner gloves, and hopefully you don't actually ever touch the moulds, hot moulds, with the gloves. You've got to be safety conscious. You cannot, absolutely cannot have any moisture involved in lead making whatsoever. You're going to need a dust mask. You're better really if you can get a full-on breathing mask. The problem I have is that, I'll just show you, because a lot of the time I have to wear reading glasses to do close work. If I put this on here, up the top here, the heat comes out between the glasses, and it steams all the glasses out, which is a real pain because I can see nothing, like this. Two bits of heavy breathing. What can I see? Nothing. It's steamed up totally. So get yourself a proper breathing one, because there are some potentially hazardous fumes off of lead making. You're going to want protective eye goggles, and if I've got glasses, which I have, I can see nothing. But you've got to wear goggles in case there's a splashback or there's some damp there or something blows up. But get yourself some goggles anyway. Handy to have a pair of long nose pliers, ordinary pliers, because you can fiddle around with, you can pick things up, you can move them around, you know, when they're hot, you can move stuff around like this. You can open lead moulds up just with the pliers, you can close them up, they're still going to be hot. It just saves using those gloves. Just one final tip, I also like to use mould grips as well, but the problem if you use mould grips or other type of grips, when you clamp at one end here like this, as you can see just there, it opens up the other end. So and the lead's just going to pour straight out onto the floor. What you do is get another clamp, the other end, you watch it close, bang. That's how you want it. You want that as a tight seal so the lead goes down here quickly and this is totally sealed up. So you might have to use two, one at one end, one at the other end. Heating, okay, for melting, I've got some old saucepans here and I've hammered out a bit of a lip, a little bit of a pouring lip on them like this, so that I can actually pour out the lead. Now I can get several pounds of lead in there melting. For heating up, I just use my boat, my high sea drifter galley, that's what I use, my fishing boat's cooker. I've got two so I can actually do double bubble here. I can get two on the go at the same time. I can be melting some down here, I can be pouring from this one, and I work it from a separate Calagas butane bottle here. Or keep your lighter handy but well away from everything else. Now I also have another pourer here which I occasionally use because it heats up quite quickly because it's got a wide area, and I've got a proper full-on ladle, a proper ladle with a long handle. The only thing is, don't use this with a lot of lead in it because it's pulling on you all the time, but what it does have is you can pour nice and neat. You can get down into there really neatly with that pour, which I'll hopefully show you when we get some lead melted up. Now while that's melting down, I'm going to move across over to this other burner just there. I'll light that up, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to light that one up and start to preheat. I'll just slide these locking bars apart. Now I'm just going to turn it very, very low, this one. Now I've got a bit of breeze. I'm in the garage. I'm also on the floor, you'll probably notice. Now what I'm going to do here, I've got the mould there, but what you're going to do is you make sure you put the wire loop in. There's the wire loop, and this is where I don't really like the shape of them. They just splay out a bit, so I just tweak them in a bit. A little bit of adjustment there. And I close them up a touch, and that give me a little bit of gripping. There's the lead mould. Going to make a DCA mould, this one, and just put the loop in, the eyelet in, so it's about there. Just leaves a little bit that you're going to get onto the fishing line, and the clamp. So it's important to keep it all clamped and tight, and I'm just going to rest that on there. That can be heating up. I'll probably do a couple of these, so we might get lucky. That's the other one I'm going to do. That's a popular one. I guess it's about a good 8-ounce one, and that is probably one of my more popular moulds. Now for this reason, this is the first time I'm heating up. You see I'm not wearing the gloves. That's because the moulds are stone cold, and it's important to ensure the moulds are hot to get the first pour. Very often the first pour, it sort of comes out what I call blind, doesn't work at all. Let's just put that one there, grip there. That can be heating up. There we go. Yeah, the first one comes out sort of what I call it blind anyway. But we'll let those two heat up now. Obviously the heat's going to get transmitted up here, so I will be removing these with gloves when that lead's melted down. Just while we're waiting for all this to melt down, just to give you an idea that lead has a very low melting point. It's 327.5 degrees centigrade. Very critical, that is. And you know, lead beads were found dating back to 6,400 BC, and they were found in Turkey. This is now molten, this lead, but they do advise you just to try and let it go a little bit longer than normal. We're going to use this piece of lead here just to clean back the rubbish, and I've put it on the opposite direction of where I'm going to pour it from. You can see that's the sort of sediment or residue left over. I think they call it for oxidizing. There is one. Now there is the other. I'm going to come around here. There is the molten lead, and I'm very carefully and quickly going to get that shot down the hole. Now, it might solidify and clog up the hole. It might get a take on it. I think we've got a take. Just keep pouring, 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 and that is full up. Now I'm going to try this one. I don't think I've got enough lead, but it's gonna preheat the mould anyway. That one is definitely not enough lead for that mould, but I'm not bothered because it's the first pour. That's going to heat that mould up. Now when you've emptied out, you can see this residue rubbish. I put that is hot, and put it well out the way, and then you can start again. Gloves on. Okay, I'm going to try the first one here. Undo the spring clip, and what I do is I just gently tap it. Yep, we got a beauty. A nice shiny brand new lead. It's still going to be hot, but I've got the leather gloves on, so you should let it cool down. I've let this cool down quite a bit, and then get yourself a pair of snippers, and you can just shear off that surplus. There you go, there's the lead. All that remains is to tidy that one up and put it over to cool off. It has cooled off, it's warm, you can see I'm not going to pick it out hot. So we're going to put that over. That's one done. Beautiful. And just note, there's plenty there to get your snap swivels through the end of that eyelet. This piece goes back into the melting pot for using because it's still warm, so it'll take less time to melt down. Okay, here's another tip, guys. You've got a hot mould or warm mould. It's had a bad pour and it hasn't taken. You've got to put another loop in there. Use a pair of pliers because this is going to be hot. And when you get your fingers close in there, like this, you just tap it gently, just down to where you want it. And then you put your clamp on the back, and the loop's in there ready to go. If you do it bare fingers, you might just burn your fingers there. So let's get that one on the burner and warm them up. Another piece of information for you while we're waiting for these moulds to heat up is that there's a sort of oxidized contaminant that floats to the top. You want to pull it to one side so it doesn't block up the pouring hole. It's called drossing. They used to do it years ago. It's a sort of skimming off of the rubbish. And hence, I guess that's where the name comes from. That's a load of dross, meaning it's a load of rubbish. So let's hope the next pour I get is not a load of rubbish or a load of dross. Okay, here we go. Let's try this one on pour number 1 with a hot mould. Straight in, no problem. That's a good one. I can tell straight away from experience that's a good one. Let's get a second one in there. Right, hopefully pour number 2, and let's see if that mould's hot enough. That's a hot mould. You can tell the flow rate is totally different. Absolutely totally different. That's a good pour as well. This is a big mould. This is one I use off the Isle of Wight when I'm fishing in big tide races. And a bit of an overspill there, no problem. What I also want to show you while that's there, absolutely only do this when you're on dry ground. This is why I'm in the garage. I want to clear the scurf and the rubbish and the dross from this. So I'm just going to roll it out, just like this on the concrete. Do not do that where it's wet, but you'll see that set. And I can remelt this again and it's clean. I'll just put it all the way around there, let it cool off just so you can see. Now inside there is the rubbish. That's what we call the dross. There's no point keep trying to heat that. It's done, it's finished, it's ruined. I'll tip it out there. Bang it all out. Now you can see you've got the good, that's set already, that lead, look. Pure lead there, and you can sort through this, get your good bits of lead out. All this rest is rubbish, but that is still hot. Do not touch. Okay, we're pretty well in the system of it now. Let's check these ones out. And there we go. 1 for 1. Hot mould. Beautiful. Nice lead, just snip that off. Once you get working quickly, back in the pot, goes on the heap. Keep that mould hot. Number 2. Oh, sweet. Number 2, straight out. Snip off the surplus. There we go. In the pot. What do you think, guys? 3 for 3? That's a big one. That's a big old lump. Is that going to save me a lot of money fishing? Oh, yes, please. Shiny, glistening, Bopedo DCA 1 pound lead. At least now I feel I can afford to lose it. I don't want to, do I? It's beautiful, beautiful and shiny. Snip off, let's keep these moulds hot and just crack them out. Okay, a little tip here is don't drain that lead, all the molten lead out. Just leave a little bit in the pot because it's much hotter than you know, the actual pot itself, the lead. And just, you can see these great big lumps of pipe. There's that dross, that black dross, but I've got lumps of leftovers there. I'm putting them in, and if you can just get them in contact with the molten lead, you'll find that they melt down quicker. Right, this is the grip away mould, which has an eyelet here which slides in for taking your fishing line for casting. It's got a locator there, so we just close the mould up like that. Now you can have that a short tail like this, you can have it short, or you can have it long tail if you want better distance cast. About halfway I'm going to go, so I'm going to clamp that off there. Always make sure the pouring hole's at the top. That's all ready. And then what you do is you put two sort of locators in here. This is where the wire's going to go, but these are, if I can wiggle those through, these are to keep the holes clear for putting the wire in the grip lead. It'll be obvious when I've done it what's happening. So I'm going to pull this out, and there we go, it's ready to get on the preheat. Pull out these pins. These are the safety pins, like this. That's got our pre-drill holes for the wire, we hope, and there's the lead. Beautiful. Pop it out. I want to try and keep these moulds hot if I can, and that's ready for snipping, and we'll show you how we fit those leads through there. You can see the grooves are all moulded. These ones have to be moulded really well. Same thing now. This one's very slightly different. I thought I got greedy and do two. This one, when I snip that off, this has a vane flight to help flight it through the air, so this would be a good one for casting. Okay, now what we've got to go with this kit to make wired grip leads, I've got the finished lead there. It's got those holes that I put those sort of pilot bits of stainless wire here, so I can put the wire that they come supplied with these little kits through there, equidistant, and then they supply you with these little nylon sleeves. I'll show you, just these ones. They supply you with those, and they locate when you bend them. Okay, here we go. I've now got, as you can see, I've got the two wires, I've got all the bends in there. Now if you squeeze these, get those two out of the way, together like that tight, when you roll them back up the lead, they'll locate and pop just in these little slots over here. So you're tensioning them up, that makes them tighter. If you want it slacker, now that is, I'll tell you what guys, that's money in the bank, because these grips that pull out, what they do is you cast out, they hang on the bottom, they spike in the sand, but obviously that creates resistance when you're coming to retrieve it. But if you just watch my hand there, as I pull back, bang, they spring out. They just pop out, watch, bang. Well, there you go. Another session in the Totally Awesome Fishing Workshop. And we've come up with some real bullion, some real nuggets this time. How to make cheap fishing leads. These are worth money. I'll tell you what, these guys with the grips, they're going to be worth more in the future. I don't want to lose them. Brilliant. Get yourself set up. Get yourself some cheap lead from the plumbers, the electricians, the roofers. Buy some moulds, invest in some moulds, and in the long run, you are going to be the winner. And with these, the fish will be the losers. I'm off to make some more.